Hey.
Ooh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Awesome, awesome. It's my first time doing one of these. You too?
I've done 2 of them before. So one I ran and one I participated in.
Okay, all right. Well, so I guess people they see it's live and then they come join it, or
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of weird. It's like a live stream, but it feels like, I don't know, when you're doing a live stream, it feels like you're talking to the other person on the live stream. But with these things, it really feels different. Like, I don't know. It's strange kind of, it feels like being in the same room with them in a way that a live stream doesn't, because there isn't the separation of the we're on camera and you're not.
yeah. Well, apparently they do have a video feature at least now. They gave me the choice if I wanted to do video or audio. I just chose audio. I figured that'd be better.
I think audio only is better. I've never done a video one on here.
Cool. I just shared on Discord that it's live. I'll probably share on YouTube as well if anyone's interested. And then I did promote this on the Kickstarter. Oh, hey, what's up? We got somebody.
Hey, hello, Cabot.
Oh, I guess they didn't stick around.
Goodbye, Cabot. All right, so I'm going to retweet here. Did you do one that it's just started?
Yeah, it just when I started it, it automatically created a tweet.
All right, so here we go. Come join and talk GamerGate. The rare opportunity for me to wax political. Yeah. Actually, I'll say something different.
And I'll retweet you too.
All right. The secrets. I don't know, let's see. Come and join and talk GamerGate with us. We will reveal how we got Donald Trump elected.
True.
Caused Hollywood to go bankrupt. Triggered the Russo-Ukraine war.
Colonized Mars.
Colonized Mars. How our efforts promoted the colonization of Mars and made thin in again on Instagram. It's all due to GamerGate.
Based.
No cap.
We are recording, just a heads up too.
Yeah, great.
Well, cool. How you been?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just rapidly dropping some bombs a couple places here to let people know we're doing this.
Yeah, I'll probably throw a few more out there too.
I've been invited to a Twitter space.
Hey, what's up, Charles? I do have a topic for us, by the way, Archon.
Excellent. All right, I just need to grab this. How do I get the link? Is it the scissors?
I can probably get you the link. Copy URL. Do you want me to message you on, I guess?
Yeah, DM me, I guess. or Twitter or Discord, whatever's fine.
There you go. X.com. There we go. Cool.
All right, here we go. Okay. All right. I have dropped my invites out to the Axe community, and we're ready to rock here. So
All right. Sounds good. Well, hey, we got Christmas coming up. You got any big plans to talk about?
not really. My wife and I actually already got our Christmas present to each other. We went and got really nice, almost front row seats to Cirque du Soleil, and saw the Cirque du Soleil touring show. It was absolutely fantastic. Only my second time ever seeing it. It's profound. So, how about yourself?
Just visiting my parents most likely, and got a few gifts for some friends and family. But I do actually. What is a circus delay? I've heard of it before. I've never actually been or seen it.
Cirque du Soleil is it's like a combination of really extreme acrobatics with almost operatic storytelling. So imagine a circus if they dialed the acrobatics and the trapeze acts up to 11 and got rid of the animals and clowns.
Okay.
Anyway, hey, I see we got some folks. We got Crafty Matt is joined. So I had to look it up. It is Night Penitent, not Night something else that it looks like when Twitter takes off the tent word. We got Andrew, Neil. Hello, everybody. So a lot of listeners here. So Tachyon, man, what are we talking about here?
So I guess mostly we're talking about GamerGate. Anyone has any questions for GamerGate? It's my first time doing space, so if I have the settings screwed up, let me know. But in theory, you should be able to raise your hands, I think, if you want to ask a question or confront us. We do have thumbs up here, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the first topic I got for us is, have you seen the story NBC News has reported on the death of, I guess first off, what do you think of the death of the United Healthcare CEO?
Oh, gosh. Well, my reaction has been to put myself in the shoes of the current upper class and look at the event. And doing so, I would be quite chilled if I was them. Because by the standards of our upper class, the fellow that got murdered, whose name I've already forgotten, was not a particularly terrible person. He wasn't an Enron white-collar criminal. There's no hint of sexual scandal or racial scandal. He's never been, as far as I know, accused of anything that would have gotten him canceled. He seems to have just been a run-of-the-mill CEO of a healthcare company. And people hate our CEOs and our healthcare so much that they are celebrating his murder. And I can't think of the last time I've seen people openly celebrate a murder like that, almost bipartisanly. And if I was running things, I would be looking at that and be gravely concerned at the mood of America about its ruling class right now. So that was my takeaway.
Yeah, I don't think people should engage in murder. I think that they should try to reform the laws if they want to change the laws regarding healthcare. They should pass laws and legislation that will enact the policies that they want, rather than try to kill people who are just CEOs, basically. Basic bitch
Yeah.
will take.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you start to see political violence arise when people feel that they don't have any other means of changing the system. Che Guevara says in his book on guerrilla warfare that a guerrilla insurgency can never succeed as long as people think that they live in a democracy. Because as long as they think they live in a democracy, they'll always think that they should try and change things through the ballot. And so that's why I say, like, this having a killing is bad, but having a killing and then the masses of people are celebrating it, that's a scary sign.
Yeah, I don't know how common the support for people killing CEOs is, or healthcare CEOs in particular, health insurance CEOs. I don't, like, if we polled this, I don't know what you'd really get. I know that it's kind of It is bipartisan though, which is unusual. Like I first
Yeah.
saw people on Twitter and on Reddit who were left wing celebrating it,
Yep.
and then in real life I went to a party and
Yep.
with more conservative people, and they were celebrating it too. I'm like, what the
Yeah. Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely it's an interesting phenomenon. And you saw, of course, that the shooter plays video games.
Yes, I was gonna bring
So
that up.
yeah, so I think we can say we can add this up to the list of GamerGate's crimes. We were responsible for this as well.
Yeah, he plays Among Us, and NBC News wrote a whole article basically just because of this quote from the guy's friend, the killer's friend, where he talked about how it was ironic that he was like an assassin when he also played an assassin in Among Us.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's just it's the article doesn't like actually like blame the video game for the violence,
Right,
but it's like why are we talking about this at all? It's a non-story, especially
right.
Among Us of all games. It's like one of the like, least offensive games you could possibly play.
Well, it is politically incorrect to say so, but I think the critics of video games have a point, or they would have a point if they made the right criticism, which they don't. They seem to think that the way video games affect young men is to somehow emotively transform them into killers. And I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think someone plays a video game and says, "Yeah, I think murder looks really fun." What I do think video games do is teach people strategy and tactics. Like, I think the average level of tactical knowledge of, let's say, squad level tactics is probably much higher among young men today than it was before the invention of video games, such that should a person decide they want to do bad things, they're probably more likely to be successful at doing those bad things because they've had some tactical training. There's like a running joke among gamer groups, right? Where, you can't actually put gamers in like post-apocalyptic zombie movies because as soon as stuff starts to happen, they would be like, well, obviously this is a zombie apocalypse, right? Like it requires clueless normies who don't know what's going on and are in denial. Whereas the game, and I think it's kind of a similar effect. But of course, our critics aren't intelligent enough to make that criticism, and they're just like, wow, we're turning our children into murder bots or
Well, is
whatever.
that even true? That like has it been studied that people who play video games, for instance, like that they like if you take a random sample of people who play video games, just generally, not even specific games, but just in general, you take them and you compare them with a random sample of people who don't play video games. Like, will the video game people actually have like better skills in terms of like coordinating with tactics and military equipment and stuff like that?
So I don't know that it's ever been studied. I have not seen any studies. I will say that when I was at the U.S. Military Academy, both my own anecdotal experience and the experience of my fellows at the academy and those who stayed in, and some of them did multiple tours of duty in combat zones, was that the knowledge that they had gained playing war games put them well ahead of their peers in terms of understanding strategy and tactics. Um, and a number of folks I know that are in the military do agree with me on this. So expert opinion, I think, probably supports it, but I don't know of any studies. And given the replicability crisis and the co-option of academics, I don't know that I would credit the studies anyway. Like if you showed me a study from Harvard that said video games actually don't help you at all, like I don't know that I would believe that.
Huh. So are you completely distrustful of academic institutions at this point?
Oh yeah, yeah,
We got our first
yeah.
call request. Shall we take
Okay. Yeah, let's
JP?
take it.
Go truck it. All right, JP, you're up. What's up?
He doesn't seem to be empowered to talk yet. He's still listed as a listener.
Oh, is he? Is he now? All right, you should
Okay,
be good now.
mic's on.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yeah. What's up,
Okay.
JP?
Yeah, so there was actually a study in, I want to say it was Sweden or Switzerland. one of those two that actually took place over a course of 25 or 30 years about the effect of games on kids and as they grew into adults. And it was actually, the sample size was about 1,000 participants.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that 1,000 participants, they really didn't see anything outside of the normal percentages of population of people going to prison for violent crime as opposed to people that didn't. So there was really no change.
Mm.
So that was it. I read the study. Oh, it was several years ago, but there is a study out there where they actually did some, you know, they basically took away all the bias because there's a lot of studies that have been done supposedly uh, that really lack empirical data and they're very skewed to the bias of the what they're trying to prove, right? Well, violence causes, video games cause violence and blah blah blah. Well, there is like there was another study that basically showed that after playing video games, you are in a slightly heightened sense or state for between 15 to 20 minutes. You're kind of in a more heightened state, but of course you're doing something that you're involved with, your emotions are in there, your adrenaline is in there. So of course as the old term was, your blood is going to be up for a little while. That happens. Now, there are some people that have been maladjusted that have done certain things when people have interrupted their gaming session. Well, that's not because of the game. That's because those people had problems to begin with.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
the idea of violence being caused by video games, it's just, it's just like rock and roll is going to make everybody sexually perverse. Well, people were already sexually perverse, just nobody talked about it. Uh, rock and roll was just music. It really didn't do anything. It just opened up the dialogue. So, you know,
Yeah, well, I think you'll find you're among friends here who really just like moral panics. So you're in good company.
yeah,
Amen. Absolutely.
yeah. So again, it's just like, again, those are moral panics. Those are people have an axe to grind. So they want to blame something on something other than society's failings, right? They want to blame it. They want to find something to blame it on. Well, how could this happen? This, especially when things are so out of place. It was just a cold-blooded murder. This guy had a reason. He built up this reason in his mind. He made this cause for himself to do this. Um, and Che Guevara notwithstanding, there are better ways to seek change. Problem with the corporation CEOs, it's a hydra. They get rid of this guy, somebody offs this guy, guess what? There's another one in line. And it's not going to get any better because there's no dialogue. Anytime we have something for profit, there's always going to be abuse in the system as long as there's greed. That's the nature of it, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's a fact. So, but back to the point, no, video games do not cause violent actions. That's all.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yep. So
Yeah.
JP, you got any questions for us?
Not really. I tuned in. I saw GamerGate taking all comers, Tachyon Blue and Escapist founder Archon. I really haven't heard much about GamerGate I thought that was sort of an over thing, and there were a lot of people that said it was one thing and others said it was another thing. It seemed like it was more of a pushback against journalism, kind of pushing ideas. There was the whole "I'm not your shield"
Yep.
hashtag that came out of that with people of minorities saying, "Hey, don't lean on me, don't hide behind me to make your point." So I think once people saw some of the hypocrisy going on in the media and finding their own way, finding the things they enjoyed, I do a paint stream. There's a lot of in the tabletop gaming industry. There's a lot of cultural back and forth, right? And really, I pay attention to it. I understand it. It's there. I personally try to stay out of those discussions too much, just because ultimately they don't keep me from living my life. So
Truth.
All right. Well, hey, JP. Yeah, I would say you're not too far off. It's about ethics in games journalism. So I wrote a book. I'm working on a multi-volume series of books, actually, where I've interviewed over 70 people involved with GamerGate, including Archon here, founder of the Escapist, and we're promoting it now. That's why we're doing the space. So yeah, we're just trying to. If people have questions about GamerGate, about what happened, I've interviewed over 70 people, people from all walks of life, different political perspectives. Most of them, the vast majority, almost all of them actually, say it was about ethics in games journalism. Now, some people do add other stuff to it as well. Like some people do add like artistic freedom or censorship, and for some people too, it was about the culture war, about trying to kind of oppose what they saw as social justice warriors in games.
sure.
So it's sort of like people had different motivations or different factions, but I think I've tried to document all that pretty well with the project here.
So I remember there were big names. There was the one lady. She had developed a game called Depression Quest or something, and it got great reviews, but it was barely anything more than say flash animation sort of thing. And then there was who else was there? There was Anita Sarkeesian complaining about not being able to see Batman's butt.
Yeah, strategic butt covering.
you know, yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of that. I mean, I think a lot of that goes back to the moral panic. I'm outraged. I take offense at this, so therefore I'm right. And I think it's okay to take offense at things, and it's okay to even say I don't like this. Everybody has an opinion, and we're allowed to say what our opinion is. But demanding that policy be made just upon an opinion, where people's lives aren't at stake. I mean, yeah, okay, so you can see Catwoman's butt because that's the way her costume was designed in the comic books, and you can see only Batman's cape because that's the way his costume was designed. When you have people that are trying to change the whole culture based on their opinion, and it's usually a very narrow viewpoint. It's funny because a lot of these people are the same ones that will say, well, you shouldn't other people. There should be no in-group, out-group sort of distinctions. But they're the same ones that will other people, they will other you if you have a different opinion. They will put you in the out group if you have a different opinion. And sometimes there's no reasoning with these people.
Agreed on that for sure.
Unfortunately, that's true. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what happened during GamerGate. Is a lot of people created this outgroup that they called GamerGate, and then they sort of lumped everyone who disagreed with them into this umbrella, included people who were involved with GamerGate and people who probably didn't even know what it was, and they sort of cast them as the enemy to paint this picture of them as being these bad people you shouldn't listen to.
Yeah, well, they moralized thing instead of just fighting a bad opinion with a better opinion. They moralized, and that turns people off to your message faster than anything. So it's okay to have opposing viewpoints. It's when you start to demonize the other people because they have a different viewpoint.
I agree. Well, hey JP, we got a lot of other people requesting to speak. Do you have anything else you want to talk about real quick?
No, that's about it. I think one of the crystallizing points for me at that point was when somebody was attacked at Gen Con by a person that didn't like their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So
that
was
was
an
the
interesting.
quartering, right?
That was the quartering. Yeah, the quartering
Yeah.
got attacked. Yeah.
No, that technically wasn't a GamerGate event. The person who attacked him was a fan of Anita Sarkeesian, so they might have been anti-GamerGate. But quartering himself says that he wasn't involved with GamerGate. That He disagreed with Anita Sarkeesian, but he wasn't. Didn't consider himself a GamerGate person.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
But
that's
obviously, he
that's
shouldn't
it.
have been assaulted. That's obviously horrible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. I'll let other people have a chance. Thanks for chatting with me. I'm gonna carry on my evening.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if you want to support the project, visit gamergatebook.com, and we're on Kickstarter right now. Take care.
Who else we got lined up?
Can I remove speaker feature? Or oh, it can. Cool. All right, we got 3 people waiting. We've got
All right.
Britain in distress has been waiting longest. So, Britain, you're up. What's up? Oh, he's still connecting. So give him a second here. All right, Britain, you're up. You're live. What's up?
Looks like his mic is muted.
That explains it. Sorry about that. It just brought me a bit further forward in the conversation because I think I was a bit behind.
Well, the floor is yours, my friend. What do you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was involved in quite a bit in GG 1.0, so this is a relatively new account that got put in since the takeover. But I sort of wanted to bring up something of what got discussed earlier with regards to sort of gamers, sort of the predisposition among gamers towards higher levels of executive function versus sort of your average individual. I think there has been a couple of things on that here in the UK in terms of sort of in the military where they are selecting for people with particular sort of backgrounds in gaming at the moment, which is quite an interesting area of study because I know there's been a big thing in Russia for sort of grand strategy players, which has been a hell of a conversation to have recently. But something that's come during the whole GG 2.0 debacle that's going on at the moment is we've sort of run into a bit of a roadblock, I feel like now, especially since I guess we can't really call it a complete victory at the moment because there's still quite a lot of ground to be gained and the industry is kind of a disaster piece right now. But it feels like a few people are declaring victory too early, and sort of the puritanical side on the right is coming out all of a sudden. So people we've sort of aligned ourselves with and partnered up with, people like Melanie Mack, etc., have suddenly come out on the other side of things and gone sort of back to being full Puritans and attacking gaming from the right, which we've not really dealt with since Fox News went after Mass Effect back in, what was that, 2009?
God, I don't know, actually.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
So what would you say? You mentioned Melanie Mack. Let's just use that as her example. Not to attack any one person, but
I don't want to sort of focus on any one individual.
What would you say is like the thing that her or other people that you would consider like the woke right, or like the people on the right who are going too far? Like what would you say is like the best example of that you can find?
I would say it's the sort of the sudden coming down on titillation in gaming, and because I mean I remember, once again, not to harp on Melody Mac, but she pushed quite hard for a classic Tomb Raider, classic Lara, who was designed to be very, very sort of sexualized, very titillating for the male audience, because of that's what people bought into. Sex sells, and ever since it seems like we've sort of prematurely declared victory. People of her ilk, people claiming the banner of Christianity is suddenly coming down on the side of, oh, well, First Descendant should be censored.
What has she said
these
that,
Korean.
or?
So it's come across quite aggressively against these Korean and Asian games, which are calling them pornographic. And it's like, I've got a lot of VNs on my phone. First Descendant doesn't come close to pornographic.
No, but
I mean,
like,
it's sexualizing.
what's the example? Like the best example of like of her or somebody else like saying like, oh, we can't have or we should have these sexy games or attractive characters in games.
I'll see if I can find the post, but it's been somewhat recent because it's been a whole argument with some of the Christian groups here on X, where some have come out in favour of it, some have come out against it. Let me just go into the chat because I was in a conversation about this earlier today, actually.
I've encountered the same thing that Britain is referencing. I encountered it on Substack. I've encountered it in my own role-playing game work because I do, very kind of pulpy, sexy artwork from my comic books and games. Chainmail bikinis,
God
Red
bless you, dude.
Sonja. All the superheroines have high heels on their outfits, like,
Face.
and I ended up having to write an aesthetic manifesto on Substack to basically tell people why I was doing that, because of the outrage I was getting from the right about it. And my argument is, right now there's been a huge upswing of young men moving to the right, like 33 points over the last 8 years, rightward shift to the United States. And that is because young men have been made problematic. Like, normal young male interests have been transformed into something that's considered bad by our society. And so if we think for a moment that the way we're going to continue to appeal to young men is to now say, oh, welcome to the right wing, also we think everything you like is problematic, that's a suicide strategy, and I want no part in that. I think all the things that young men think are cool, big boobs, hot girls in latex, huge muscular men with giant guns, huge armored mecha, it's all fantastic. That's where I am.
All right, now look,
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be aspirational.
I'm all for it, but fuck it, I'll do it. I'll play devil's advocate for a second here, just for fun.
All right,
But
play
all
the
right,
devil.
so
I'll
I'm
put it in
all
the chat, by the way.
for sexy mecha women and guns and boobs and all that stuff in games. Absolutely, all for it. But
Based.
these people, when some of these people say, and I'm not super familiar with Christian arguments, but when they say something along the lines of like, look, there's so many things you can do in your life. You should focus on things that are going to be positive and uplifting and bring you closer to God. Running people over in Grand Theft Auto is not going to be doing that. Playing, Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball is not going to be doing that. Playing these different games, it's a waste of time. If you're going to play any games at all.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
absolutely, they would make that argument, and that gets really deep into Christian theology as to how one's relationship should be with the world and what one's relationship should be with secular society. And there are certain groups that their views on that are so distinct from mine that I know I'm not going to reach them. So I don't really have much to say to those folks. Like, okay, if you're going to turn your back on secular society because you want to have a closer relationship with God, I respect that. I mean, I'm Greek Orthodox. We had dudes who used to get up on pillars and meditate for years in the desert. Cool, but that's not where that's not how, as politically speaking, aesthetically speaking, business wise, none of those three is that a successful strategy.
Well, it loses not just a censor,
I would
but it
say the
also
argument against
loses.
that is, if you want to live your life that way, you can, but don't try to force other people to live their lives the way you want them to.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that sort of, it loses as the
You can live
censor.
your own values, live an aesthetic life if you want, but don't force that on everyone else.
Are you not able to
Yeah.
hear Britton?
I can't hear Britton right now. No.
Oh, yeah, you've been talking over him. He's been talking.
I can't hear him at all.
Sorry.
No.
Oh,
That's weird. Well, I won't stick it on for too long if I can't be heard.
I can hear you quite well. Yeah, that's why I said something, because he was
Let me remove him as a speaker and add him back.
Yeah, give us
Okay.
1 sec. Give us 1 sec, Britton.
I just sent him another invite. Okay, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Glad we got that sorted.
Right. So yeah, I do think it runs the risk of us losing the censor, and I guess the argument in the long term, because the people like the modern Anita Sarkeesians, the Alyssa McCansays of the world, they are using sexuality quite heavily in promoting themselves, and if we lose that to them, it's not going to be a nice place for us to be, because right now we have sort of a good medium where we have sexuality, we have titillation, we have freedom of expression in terms of violence and all the other stuff in games, and we're not censoring that. That's brilliant. And the bad games and stuff like Dragon Age Veilguard, which is a hell of a lot less sexy than Inquisition was, they're failing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason for us to go back on that and sort of lose all the progress that we've made, because suddenly the people that had I guess aligned with us because it was convenient to do so then have suddenly come out as I hate to use the word, but kind of got like grifters.
Yeah, like Matt Walsh is an example of a right winger.
Oh, do not get me started on that guy.
Yeah, and who having benefited from the support of gamers, but now that he's starting to feel like he's in a position of power, is revealing his true colors. That's like an example of one. And and frankly, I'm not down with that, right? Like I ended up on the right wing because I'm in the party of you know, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And if the right wants to become the new moral scold, then I'm not interested in that. So
Precisely. I mean, that's in pre-GG 1.0. I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are in this chat will probably agree with sort of, if you do the political compass test, we probably started around about the green square.
is that the
Just
bottom?
slowly
Is that the
bottom
bottom? Is that the bottom left square or the bottom right
Yep.
square?
We started in the bottom left square and sort of over the last sort of 10 to 15 years have been drifted more and more right to the point of a lot of us being pure ANCAP.
Well,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
people
yeah.
definitely have. I don't think it's really moved. I don't know how much it's really moved because I've interviewed over 70 people involved. 27 of those pro GamerGate people did take the optional survey, and about 33% of them went for Trump, or were planning on going for Trump at least, and 27% were planning on going for Biden, and the rest were going third party of American GamerGate people. So it doesn't look like they've really. See, it looks like they're still pretty mixed.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in
Now,
terms of the people of local, I'd say.
Did your interview list though? Didn't that include a lot of people that were they weren't gamers, they were game journalists or game developers?
Some of the people I interviewed weren't, like Christina Hoff Summers.
Yeah.
Like she's not a
Thanks, Mama.
gamer, but she didn't take the optional survey. I don't believe.
Yeah.
So she wasn't hers wasn't included in that because she didn't.
Gotcha.
She did not opt into it unless she did. Maybe she used a burner email address, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, you got anything else for us, Britton?
So yeah, I was just going back on what we were talking about earlier. Do you guys think that sort of when we're talking about executive function with regards to gamers, is it that we do display a higher level of executive function because we play video games, or are we predisposed to being attracted to video games and playing video games because we're coming at it from a position of already having that?
So I do think there is an issue with there being an overreach on the other side. I don't I don't trust the quote unquote like anti woke community, I guess, to be like good stewards of the gaming industry. Just as I don't trust the woke community to do so. I don't know how we'll see this materialize, but I think just fundamentally, what I look for in people, I guess, is if they have good thought processes, they go about determining information in good ways, and I also look for honesty too. So like that's what I would look for in a content creator. Like I know a lot of content creators out there, whether they're woke or anti woke or whatever. I would just like look for that, and like the people out there who are misleading their audiences or making big claims without much evidence, I would probably steer away from those people and recommend others to do so. I guess that's
All right.
really. You got anything, Archon, on that? Or
No, man. Let's move on to the next.
all right. Well, hey,
All right.
Britton, thanks for coming on. And if you want to back the Kickstarter, you can at gamergatebook.com. All right.
Cheers. Take care.
All right. We got a couple other requests in here. We've got T-shirted historian next. T-shirted historian, you're live. I see you, Crafty Matt. I'll get you next. I know you were waiting longer. Sorry. Historian, you there?
Yeah, sorry, the mic was turned off. Get me now?
Yeah, what's up?
So, most people have seen my show, and they know where I'm coming from on a lot of this stuff, because I was in the industry, well, I still am in the industry, but I was one of the canceled people from before cancel culture really got a hold of it, before GamerGate. Because I worked on projects with another author, and we put out a title that really offended people, apparently, to the point where they were screaming at our publisher, they were screaming at us, they were just calling us all sorts of horrible names, even Jason Bullman himself actually came out and said, "Oh, that's terrible. Fuck
Mm.
that guy." But yeah, we got canceled really early on in all of this shit.
Why were you
So I wanna
canceled?
say-
What happened?
Hmm?
Oh, why were you canceled? What happened?
Well, like I said, it was I had been working on games that were adult in nature. I were working with another guy who was putting out adult games. I was doing the artwork, and apparently he decided to name one of his books something that was offensive. I don't want to say too much and dox myself, but yeah, apparently it was so vile that it just galvanized all the role-playing community against us. But I might add, that book sold hotter than anything we've ever sold in our entire library for the very short time that we had it up on the store. So, but the deal is, it's like, I've always come at a gaming angle from, free expression. I want to be able to write about what I want to write about. That's why I champion guys like James Raggi IV and Lamentations of the Flame Princess.
Mm.
It's also why I champion you and have had you on the show multiple times to talk about your stuff too. I mean, there's games for everybody, and everybody should be able to enjoy what they want to enjoy, free of politics, unless that's what you want in your game.
Right.
Or free of censorship, unless that's what you want in your game. I mean, obviously, you're not going to run a game of Fatal for your church group.
Right.
But, if you had a reassurance that whatever you were running was, maybe not too grimdark, not too horrible or something else, you could. Or for your school group or whatever. I mean, there's a time and a place. It's like anything else, man. It's an audience. And the audience should have the choice to pick what they want to, regardless of, other people's feelings. We've gotten to this point in culture now where we can't have conversations and we can't have opinions and we can't be in the middle of things, because I've always felt that I was more of a leftist than anything else. I have all these social reform ideas that I would love to see implemented. I still like my guns, though. I'm a Texan. I'm unashamedly a Texan. I like my guns. You're not taking that away from me. And the thing was, the moment I broke lockstep on the left's issues, they shunned me. They called me bigot. They called me all these other things. And this is without knowing who I was or who I got or why I got canceled way back in the day. But it was all the right people who came out and talked to me and made me feel more welcome, and we were able to exchange ideas, and I didn't agree with them on everything and they didn't agree with me on everything, but we got along because we were able to have that dialogue. And now the pendulum has shifted back the other direction, and yeah, the right is starting to push more of its morality against everybody. And I'm like, I'm not supporting one guy against the other just so I can get stymied, stonewalled, and fucked with the other direction. I wanted to stay kind of in the middle. I figured you guys were we had 4 years of, blue-haired bullshit. I would like 4 years of, at least something that maybe makes sense where we can kind of get back to normalcy, not an extreme shift in the other direction.
Right. Yep.
But,
yep.
That's really about all I've got to contribute
I don't know
to this
what to
thing,
do,
man.
but
It's just supporting.
I think we need to open up the Overton window, and I think for the most part, for the past few years, I think we have seen this opening. I know you and I have talked about that before, Archon, and maybe I don't know. Do you still see that as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I think the woke stuff is on its way out, or at least like the most extreme versions of it, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just, I also don't want anything worse to replace it either. I don't want to replace one orthodoxy with another. I just want, like you said, I guess the middle, right? I want people to be able to live their lives and live their own values, and everybody make the games you want to make the movies and video games and comics and works of art that you want. And if people like it, great. If they don't like it, then that sucks. That's capitalism.
Yeah, I mean they're already going after the the same
you got anything else
chestnuts that
for
they
us,
used to.
T-shirt historian?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're already going after the same chestnuts that they
Am
always
I
used
lagging?
to. I don't know. Are you? But yeah, I'm
hello?
seeing them. I'm seeing them going after video games again
Am I coming
on
through?
the right.
Tachyon, you seem to be having trouble hearing T-shirted, and we can
Yeah.
hear you, but you're lagging. Or now we can't hear you, maybe.
Well, I wasn't saying anything, but yeah, the thing is, it's like, yeah, they're already going back after the old chestnuts. You've got senators and all this other shit going after video games again because they see that they're on the rise again, and they have to look for a scapegoat, and they have to push their own shit. And it's just, are we going right back to the 80s again with this crap?
We very well could be. And I think we have to fight to prevent that. I think one of the things we have on our side is that the younger generation of right wingers, so the folks that are Gen X and below, themselves grew up with video games, and so they're a lot less likely to buy into the baby boomer scare stories. In the same way that people who played Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s are a lot less likely to believe satanic panic stories about Dungeons and Dragons because they were there. They're like, no, bro, we were not doing satanic rituals in mom's basement. We were eating Cheetos and rolling D20s. Like, come on.
Right.
So so I think time is working on our side, and I think there's also a natural I mean, fundamentally, most video games have some inherent quote unquote right wing values to them in that they are promoting, individual agency, making choices that matter, promoting individual militaristic heroics, things like that, that are somewhat opposed to the current leftist worldview. Which like a lot of the high art of leftism is things that basically involve systems that are outside your control crushing you, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Like that's kind of the leftist message in many ways. And so I think it would be foolish for our now right-wing leadership to turn on video games. Like it would be one of the stupidest things they could possibly do if they wanted to alienate this resurgent right-wing youth. So of course they'll probably will do it because but yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That does seem to be the case. It's like, anytime they have a toehold, they take it just a step too far and screw it all up.
Yeah, we have a toehold. We should cut off our toes.
Exactly. Let's cut the whole foot off.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess that's my 2 bits, guys.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. It's nice to meet you, by the way.
You're welcome.
I guess you've talked
Nice
to
to meet you
Archon
too.
before. Okay. All right.
Well, yeah. I've had him on the show a couple times now.
Yep.
Good guy, and I love having him on. Anytime he wants to come on, he's got a free pass to my show anytime.
I need to have you come hang out on mine at some point now. My stream is still really small, but we're making it happen.
I don't believe that for a moment. Come on, really?
What, that it's small?
That it's small. I mean, okay, define small. Is it like less than 5,000 viewers?
Yeah.
Okay, well. I mean, yeah, Grimm's got you beat on that one, but he's been at it longer.
Hey, Grim. I've interviewed him too, actually.
Yeah, Grimm's a good guy. He's on my show every week.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on. And if you want to back the project, it's GamerGateBook.com or the People of GamerGate on Kickstarter.
I definitely will. And speaking of Grimm, that is somebody you guys really need to talk to because he was in the thick of it and he was canceled during GamerGate.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. He's already written a book about it.
Yeah, I interviewed him actually for this project. So we talked for like 4 hours, something like that, for the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
He is. He's one of my best friends. So.
Yeah, you're into RPGs?
I write them. I illustrate them. I have RPG guests on all the time. creators and stuff. And of course, we talk about them. I look at them on my channel. Everything. Yeah, we're very much into that. We're into everything that's pop culture, though. Video games, movies, television series, and everything else. And the thing I always try to make viewers aware of is that we don't get mad about this shit because we hate it. We don't get mad about Star Wars because we hate Star Wars. We hate what it's become.
Yeah,
we
that's
love
right.
Star Wars. We just don't like the direction it's gone in.
Exactly.
So I
Amen,
do
brother.
want to ask. I'll ask you. I'll ask you this real quick. I was gonna ask somebody at some point, but I'll ask you both. So I'm planning on. So you know how for the books at the end of each volume, I have a Tachyon's take, and so one of the Tachyon's takes is going to be on cultural conversations, the conversations that we have about culture in video games, Star Wars, whatever it happens to be. Right, these sort of quote unquote culture war conversations. And I was thinking, you know what? For this, I should probably play a few of these hot button culture war, quote unquote, coded games, and then write about that experience and what I think about that, as well as looking at the cultural conversations aspect too. The YouTube conversations, the Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, social media conversations, but focusing on playing a few of those games. So I was thinking, like, I need to pick woke games or games that have been criticized for being woke recently and play them, and also Stellar Blade too. So like Stellar Blade's like the anti-woke game I'm picking, and then I was thinking too I could either pick. I was thinking like Dustborn. That would be like the
Ooh.
ultra woke example.
Oh yeah.
Something that's been criticized for being like quote unquote woke because of the model is like Star Wars Outlaws. So I was thinking that's a good game to pick too.
I think Saints Row reboot would be
Saints Row
better.
reboot. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and it's dirt cheap right now too.
And I was thinking too, Coffee Talk as well, like an indie progressive game.
Yeah, I'm finding more joy out of the indies these days, but I'm also noticing another trend, and I was planning on talking about this on Saturday anyway, but I'll let you guys in on it early. I have been noticing that as Western AAA gaming dies, I mean, Ubisoft is about to get bought out by somebody, and other AAA gaming companies are not looking so good. I mean, nobody's really excited about GTA 6. But the thing is, as the AAA Western gaming developers start to die off, I am noticing that the Chinese gaming company presence is growing very, very strong. I mean, Black Myth Wukong did record numbers, and then we've got another one that's coming up in 2027 that just looks insanely good. And I don't want to put the tinfoil hat on and do a conspiracy theory thing, but I almost kind of wonder if there's a connection there.
There's always a connection.
There's always a connection. There are no coincidences.
All right, well, T-shirt. I want to get to a few more people. Got any closing
Sure thing.
shout out, closing message or anything?
No, just watch the show, enjoy, buy Archon stuff, and
Buy the Kickstarter.
do your game. Do your game. Enjoy it. Don't let anybody tell you how to fucking play it.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, we've got Crafty Matt. Crafty Matt, you're up. You're live.
Crafty.
You can hear me.
Good, how are you?
I'm well. So, to your point about calling victory early, victory is, honestly, history is written by the victor. And I know that Wikipedia is not the place to go to get your information, but it is the place that 99% of people go to find out about a topic. And GamerGate on Wikipedia says that it was a loosely organized misogynistic online harassment campaign and right-wing backlash against feminism, diversity, and progressivism in video game culture. It was conducted by using the hashtag GamerGate primarily in 2014 and 2015. GamerGate targeted women in the video game industry, most notably feminist media critic Anita Sarkeesian and video game developers Zoe Quinn and Brianna Wu. So when you look at the little box, it says that it was an online harassment campaign Its victims were Zoe Quinn and Edie Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, and others, and it was perpetrated by internet trolls, specifically 4chan and IRC, and its motives were misogyny, anti-feminism, and anti-progressivism, which we all know that at the time in 2014, 2015, that was not the case. It was that Brianna Wu, supposedly traded favors to get a better review.
Well,
and
no,
every
well, no. Zoe Quinn.
oh,
Zoe
sorry,
Quinn.
But also, she
Zoe
didn't.
Quinn, yeah.
Nathan Grayson didn't review Depression Quest. He promoted it in two art. He promoted it in an article, and he wrote about the Polaris Game Jam without disclosure.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I'm saying that at the time, people were talking about, at least at the very beginning of GamerGate, was talking about ethics in journalism, especially game journalism, where it was still a very burgeoning and new kind of thing, right? Yeah, we've had Nintendo Power and all, and Game Pro magazine and all that, but actual like games journalism was still relatively new in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I was part of it. I was actually part of a company called the Team Sportscast Network. We did esports journalism and all of that kind of stuff. We actually worked for MTV at the time. So I'm well aware of GamerGate and was in the thick of it. But again, as I was saying, history is written by the victor. And right now, the victor is, unfortunately, the people that believe that GamerGate is an online misogynistic hate squad. And I know that Alexander, you were working for Escapism at the time, or heading up Escapism at the time. When did you see that shift?
When did I see the shift in terms of the narrative?
Yeah, in terms of the narrative.
Oh, well, look, I'll answer this. So the problem with trying to rebut Wikipedia, or even thinking of it as a shift in the narrative, is that given the definitions they use for words, they are correct. Because if you take as your basic stance that anyone who disagrees with the policies of the Democratic Party is therefore misogynistic and anti-progressive and anti-feminist, or that anyone who thinks feminism is wrong in some of its platforms is therefore misogynistic, which they do. They believe that. They openly say that. Then, of course, GamerGate is this movement that they describe. The problem is that they're wrong on their definitions. Their definitions are self-serving and serve to end the debate by simply defining everyone who disagrees with them as villains. So it's kind of pointless to even try and engage with the Wikipedia editors on these things because from their point of view, based on their deep-seated values, they are accurately describing the world. The problem that we ran into is that at the time, most people didn't understand these kind of Mote and Bailey definitional strategies that were being used to wage culture war. And so, the gamers earnestly believed they were arguing for ethics in game journalism because they were earnestly arguing for objective ethics, no favorable treatment of people on the basis of race or gender, openness to the fact that games should be for everyone, and everyone includes men who like big titties. But they were being opposed by people for whom objective truth is not something that's real, because truth is a social construct created by the interplay of power dynamics, and for whom special treatment of people by race and gender isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's diversity, it's equity, it's inclusion, and so on and so on. So you had like this culture war between people who use words to mean entirely different things, who on one hand see objectivity as a good thing, and on the other see it as a lie used to create and enforce white male patriarchy, and so on and so on. And so very much GamerGate was, it was almost like two non-communicable dialects yelling at each other across the internet. So this is why I don't think you can persuade someone who's committed to those other belief structures. You can't persuade them that GamerGate was right And it's also why when people have suddenly realized that GamerGate is right, it tends to cause them to abandon those belief structures. So.
Well, and I want to say too, you say history is written by the victor as well. Is it written by the victors or is it written by historians? I guess we'll find out, huh?
It's too soon to say who's going to be writing the history.
Yeah, true.
Right?
That's absolutely true.
Like it takes decades for these things to shake out.
Cool. Did he left actually? Or I'll bring him back in. He's requesting again. All right, Crafty, you're back.
He probably got. Oh, Crafty, did you miss my awesome answer? It was an awesome answer.
What happened was my page refreshed for some reason, probably because my cat walked across my computer. But yeah, no, I heard exactly what you said. Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness, because I don't think I could say it again off the cuff.
Nope, that's okay. The issue that I have is, and something that you guys are talking about, right, is that because one side has pushed so hard that the other side is going to push back, and I'm afraid that we are going to enter this entirely puritanical, almost it's going to be too much, right? It's going to be Jack Chick again. It's going to be Jack Thompson again, if anybody remembers that from the old Mortal Kombat days, and Night Trap. And so I truly believe that we're not out of the woods yet, and I think that we're going to see a lot of changes, or at least a lot of attacking from the other side. And unfortunately, it just means that the left is going to say, "See, we were right," and that's unfortunate, right? It's the backlash from being pushed on so hard that I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I do think that there is going to be that temptation to quote unquote backlash or take prisoners. I have in my lifetime, I have watched the left abandon freedom of speech, and I have now seen the beginnings of the right abandoning freedom of speech, because they are saying, well, we were total chumps to support freedom of speech when the other side didn't believe in it. So when we take power, why should we show them any more mercy than they showed to us? We should just suppress the speech we disagree with, just like they did to us, which is, in a tit for tat game theoretic way, kind of like a correct perspective. It just unfortunately creates a society that is worse to live in.
Right. It's almost, it's interesting. Like at the time, and I don't know how many of you played Metal Gear Solid 2 at the time, but at the time, everybody hated that game because they didn't understand that game. They didn't understand that Kojima was manipulating the player as much as the game was manipulating the main the main protagonist, and basically by suppressing information or presenting information a certain way, you played the game a certain way. And so when they showed off advertisements, it was all Solid Snake. You're going to play Solid Snake. You're going to do this, and then they threw in this totally other thing, right? So it's amazing. But at the end of the game, they talk about how to control people, you need to control information, and they want to create an AI program to control and disseminate information because unfiltered information is dangerous. And I just find that highly prophetic for what's happening today. And people need to realize that no one side should ever control information.
Well, right now, I don't think that is really an issue. I think right now, everyone with the internet, they all have their own echo chambers, their own separate echo chambers. But again, this whole GamerGate 2.0 and everything like that, again, looking back at GamerGate 1.0, you see the victors, they wrote the history a very specific way to make all people who followed GamerGate evil and wrong and misogynistic.
Right.
You don't think that GamerGate 2.0, that if the right wins GamerGate 2.0, that a similar history is going to be written, but on a completely different side.
I've already seen I've already criticized some of the people involved with like the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff or the quote unquote GamerGate too, like Cabrutus and Mark Kern. So like I've already criticized them at various points over various things. So I completely get it. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that even though like right now the internet is unfiltered information, we are screaming towards a time when one side is going to where if one side doesn't control the narrative, the other side is going to control the narrative. If there's no more
Right.
free flowing information.
Well, it comes down to our society as a whole has rejected the notion that there is a truth beneath a narrative, and so all that leaves you is constant fighting over the narrative. And we're not going to get out of that until we recalibrate philosophically, which is a non-trivial task.
And I don't think it's ever going to happen in our lifetime.
It may not. It may not. Yeah. Fortunately, World War III could happen, and then our lifetimes would be short, and so then there'd be a chance for the improvement to come quicker. But...
Well, yeah, I mean, in the last week we've watched like 3 governments collapse. So yeah, you never know. This might all be, we're arguing about tabletop role playing games and video games, but
I'm just trying to get Act 2 out the door before the end of the world, man. Simple goals.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Okay. I don't have really anything else to say. I know that other people want to speak, but thank you for listening and to my like insane ramblings.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And if you want to back the project, it's gamergatebook.com or the People of GamerGate on Kickstarter.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Crafty. I'm going to go ahead and remove you as speaker. All right. Next up, we've got Science Fiction Book Club. And then I see you, JT, as well. Science Fiction Book Club, you're live. What do you got for us? Hello?
Hello there. Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Hi there. I'm dialing in from London, England. This is my first time on a space, so I'm unused to public speaking. So if I become halting all of a sudden, please forgive me. I just want to say off the bat, I initially was just going to have a question to ask if anybody had a good guide for Gamergate, but when I saw that you guys were promoting a Kickstarter, I backed it straight away, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm really happy that someone's putting something together to put the record straight on this whole sorry escapade that we've all been forced to go through for the last 10 to 12 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you for backing. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. If you want, you can see currently all the volume 1, I don't know what tier you backed at, but all the volume 1 interviews except for Wet Sprockets are actually on my YouTube channel. So you can actually listen to them now if you wanted to, if you didn't want to wait to get the book.
Well, I will certainly go and have a look at that. I'm not in the United States, so I didn't opt for the physical book, but I opted for the digital, but I'm very happy to do that. But as I've sort of wrested the mic from your hands, I just want to just take a moment, if I can, just to put a slight angle on what's been spoken about so far. You may have seen that my username and this Twitter profile is about the Science Fiction Book Club, which I organise here in London, England. And in the year that Gamergate happened, I must admit, I always viewed Gamergate as being something like a motorway road accident that I could see in the distance. As I was driving past it, if you pardon the metaphor, I could see who the pedestrians were who'd been hit by the articulated lorry, and I never felt the need. I never felt the need to slow down to look. It just looked like the people who are happy going about their lives, enjoying video games, were just being attacked relentlessly by a form of attack that they didn't really have a defense for, because it had been cooking away in academia since the late 80s, and their arguments had been honed and perfected to such a point that they were really effective. And the big mistake that I saw people making, because I was as soon as I saw these arguments coming up, I recognized them, because I'd had friends that were in academia. I'd been around these sorts of arguments for a while. I always thought they were bullshit from the start. But it was I felt really sorry for anyone who got sucked into GamerGate. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I think it's really interesting that video games became what everybody paid a lot of attention to, because it's a huge industry. I mean, I think I'm right in saying that it's bigger than Hollywood. I mean,
I believe so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah, people used to say that the porn industry back in the noughties, for every dollar that Hollywood made, the porn industry made $1.8. That was, I think, at its peak at around 2004. But I think since the early noughties, I think that gaming has become so profitable and so huge. But there's something that a lot of people, it goes by the wayside, and a lot of people don't pay attention to it, and that's the science fiction literary world really went through something very similar. And the year that it seemed to break cover and became so visible that people were paying attention to it was the same year as Gamergate, 2014. Now, I want to explain this. I live 8.5 miles from central London. I can get on a tube. It's like a 5-minute walk from my house. I can take a train into central London. In half an hour, I'm in one of the world's finest science fiction bookshops. I mean, Forbidden Planet is amazing. And from my teens, picking up science fiction books, I didn't know nor care what the politics of the author was. I didn't know what country they came from. I could guess if they were a guy or a girl. You could get some sort of hint about what's going to be in it from the cover, because you do judge a book by its cover. Let's face it. But I really didn't care, don't care, and never intend to care in the future about the politics of the authors. I want to be entertained. I want to be transported somewhere new, get new ideas, new things. And all of a sudden, in 2014, in the same way that gamers were being attacked, exactly the same thing happened with the science fiction world. It happened mainly in America, but it was a lot of sort of cultural output comes from America. And because you guys, your population is so big, you have to do that. We end up sort of copying and varying the things that you guys do. So one thing that I spotted, which was really depressing to me, was the absolute grip that academic science fiction academics had on the culture here in Britain, to the point that it shapes the narrative and it shapes how people see science fiction. It's really weird. People see science fiction as explicitly from one particular sliver of the political spectrum. They see it as default progressive. Now, I've got no issue with progressive science fiction, but as far as I'm concerned, it's one part of the spectrum. And I would hope, if you guys haven't thought about it, maybe put a little bit of time and effort into maybe having a look at what happened in the science fiction world, because I think it's really influential. Because as much as people enjoy their time playing video games, it's sort of entertainment, and there isn't often a huge amount of narrative because it's mainly the gameplay. Whereas science fiction literature, it's all narrative, and there's no game, if you like. So I think it might be worthwhile. It might be a really good constellation of dots to join up to create a fuller picture for people who are interested in the real story of Gamergate. Has that occurred to you guys?
So you're talking about the sad puppies, right?
Yeah.
So,
The whole sad puppies, these were authors that I'd never heard of. I mean, I'd seen Larry Corrier on a bookshelf, but I didn't know. Yeah, I mean, the thing that was really crazy about it, people for years were talking about science fiction being inclusive, and it's the literature of the outsider. And what happened? They just decided to take half the audience and just say no. We don't want anything to do with you. They ran away with all the toys of the science fiction literary world, and just treated people so appallingly. It was just so incredible. And unfortunately, the media did almost exactly the same thing in the science fiction world that they did to gamers.
Yes.
Yeah, I've interviewed the QQ, and in my interview with him, I asked him about the sad puppies because he'd made a video about it. One of the few videos on YouTube you can find about the sad puppies, actually. And then I also asked Kukuruyo about it as well. So it is included in at least 2 of the interviews. I think 1 or 2 of the others that got mentioned a few times as well. I really
good.
wanted. I'm glad you brought up the Sad Puppies thing, because I actually really wanted and still want at some point to visit the Sad Puppies topic using a similar format to what I used with the GamerGate project, though obviously with not 70 people, more like maybe like 7 people. A much
Maybe,
smaller.
yeah. I think one of the problems with that the Sad Puppies had is that, I mean, from a British point of view, it seemed really obvious that what was happening with that whole thing was that people were just being excluded. Just, you know, if they couldn't find any dirt on them online, they would just invent bullshit and just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And publishers and people organizing events, they just don't want trouble. So they would end up uninviting people because they just didn't want any shit. I mean, hopefully that might not be as possible now. But the Sad Puppies made a lot of strategic errors, and is that they didn't seem to know how to get the public on their side and explain their case. And they would write these interminable long blog posts that were like 5,000 words that nobody was really going to read. And so they sort of sabotage themselves, really, which is sad. I mean, I don't want anyone to be excluded. You know, there's going to be a publisher somewhere. If you want titty porn, alien invasion fiction, that you can find it. If you want more literary, let's sit around for 3 hours talking about our gender, drinking tea on a spaceship. You know, there are publishers out there for everyone. Why we need to try and exclude people just because it's not the type of book that we want to read all of the internet just seems to bring out the worst in people. But anyway, I hadn't intended to go on quite so much of a rant. I don't get much of a chance to chat about this currently, but I'm really glad that you guys have done your project. I wish you every success with it. If you do interview people about the science fiction world, I hope you broaden it. I hope you definitely should have the Sad Puppies, but please broaden it outside of that to get other people's perspective on it. Because I think the mistake you might make is assuming that there was only 2 sides, and one of which was the Sad Puppies versus everybody else. Whereas
So
I think it's a much bigger, richer world.
Let me ask you this, because if I did cover the Sad Puppies book, the primary topic would be like the Sad Puppies and the phenomenon involving them. But I've actually got a lot of detailed notes about how, if I interviewed the Sad Puppies, how I'd want to go about doing it. And so what I would want to do is I would want to interview the Sad Puppies, like Brad, Larry, Sarah, Kate, and maybe a couple other people too, maybe Kukuruyo again and QQ. And then I'd also want to get like some people on the other side who are against it, like not Peter Coffin, I'm sorry, like George R.R. Martin or John Scalzi, someone like that. Brianna Wu, maybe, who's against it. But then also, I wanted it to be like Box Day as well, with the rabid puppies and like get their perspective. And I those are like the 3 main camps, right? Or are there other voices that I would be missing out?
Well, I think certainly from my point of view, it looked like a lot of people were commenting, but the only voices that seemed to get a lot of attention were the ones that were floated to the surface by everybody else. And certainly I thought there was a lot of really smart commentary that a lot of people didn't see because they weren't looking below the headlines. So it seemed to be that the headlines were formed around people who had a large social media presence. And the large social media presence seemed to come hand in hand with bigger book sales, which is unfortunately now, I mean, it seems like a lot of science fiction awards just seem to be a popularity contest. So
for sure.
I think a lot of the really smarter takes that would have a really good, like full fat view of what was going on wouldn't necessarily come from the Puppies or from George R.R. Martin or the people that you mentioned. But again, I suppose depends how much time and effort you wanted to put into doing that, and also focusing on voices that might have a more nuanced, fuller view of it might not be as saleable or as might not garner as much attention for you. So it's a difficult balance to sort of strike.
No, for sure. Like with this, I've interviewed over 70 people, and
Oh wow.
like well, the problem I ran into with this, and the reason I would want to limit it in the future, is because I feel like I've developed a really good process with how I do interviews, and then I transcribe them into book format, and then I fact check along the way to the best of my ability.
Oh,
I
that's
think
good.
I've done a really good job of developing a process, but this process is a bit time consuming,
Yeah, I
and
bet.
also it takes up like so the first volume's over 800 pages in traditional 6x9 format. So
Yeah, that's a
that's
lot.
insane. That's volume 1 of
Yeah.
14. Well, one of between 11 and 13 in total, plus the data volume. But it's I don't want there is value in including other voices for sure. Like there's tons of value in me having interviewed so many people, but it also becomes a daunting task to publish, and then two,
Yeah.
it doesn't become very accessible for people unless they're really invested in learning about the topic.
Well, actually, you say that. I just came from an IT networking event in central London, where people were demonstrating how easy it is to develop an AI model and tool, where a data store of text. And in this particular example, it was a book by J.K. Rowling, and then you could ask, and setting it up. They've worked on the user interface to make it as easy as possible, so you can load a data store and then you can ask questions of it. And I was astonished how simple they've made it. So you're having this very, very large data store within within a couple of years. It might well be easy for someone to sit there and go, right, okay, I'm going to talk to this AI who's an expert on, that's been populated by your work. And people could sit down and say, right, tell me about what happened with Gamergate, and I will answer questions for them. So I wouldn't necessarily view having too much information as limitation.
No, yeah, that's certainly true. Like one thing that, well, I have you actually asked like a ChatGPT or anything like that about Gamergate? Because well, I have basically. It gives more nuanced answers than you'd think. Like it doesn't just repeat the Wikipedia narrative. Actually, it'll
Oh, really?
yeah. It depends. Like for a while, it was actually a banned topic. It wouldn't give you the answer at all, but now it does. And well, actually, let's try it now. Let's see what it comes up with now. 'Cause it changes all the time, but it's currently
Yeah,
unavailable.
I've only started. Sorry.
But yeah, it does give a slightly more nuanced take. It talks about how there was it talks about how it's about ethics and harassment depending on which side you're on. Basically, it's like, oh well.
Yeah, of course, of course. But one of the things that people don't realize, it was interesting hearing one of the previous speakers talking about how all this is worming its way into the culture, is a lot of people don't realize that these talking points that came to the fore, that people became aware of during Gamergate, had actually been around. I'd observed it as far back as far as 2007 and 2008, certainly in London. I started a Wimbledon book club in 2008, and the young women that came along, there was a big difference between the women who were in their 20s and the women who were in their like late 30s and 40s. You could see the women even hearing what these young girls were saying, and what was weird was what these young girls were doing is they were repeating what sounded like talking points that wouldn't have been out of place from a feminist activist like Andrea Dworkin back in the 70s and 80s. And these young women in their 20s were just repeating it like it was, God's own word. And this was in 2008. So I think we've got quite a bit of work ahead of us to sort of push back on it. But I'm so glad that people are actually finally standing up. And the preference cascade that seemed to happen when Elon Musk retweeted Trump's picture after thankfully the failed assassination attempt. Hopefully that was an inflection point, and we're now going to try to rebalance the culture slightly so that the voices that had been excluded for so long are finally going to be are going to push themselves back into the mainstream narrative. Hopefully.
Well, I hope this project is a step towards telling people the truth about what happened during Gamergate, and I appreciate you supporting it and backing it.
I really hope so. And just for anyone listening, sciencefictionbookclub.org, we're setting ourselves up as a not-for-profit, and we're going to support science fiction authors of all political stripes. Doesn't matter what your if it's science fiction, we want to help promote you. So thanks for all your work, and thanks for letting me talk at great length.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
All right, take care now.
Take care. And I see you, JT. I'll bring you in. JT, you're live. For those who don't know, JT is featured in the People of GamerGate. Like Archon here, he's one of the people I've interviewed. How you doing, JT? You're muted, by the way. JT?
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing much. How about you?
Not too much, not too much. What's on your mind?
Oh, speaking of which, I can give you guys some people that that went through that whole situation with the Hugo Awards in China.
I would love to hear about that, but I'm told that people don't want to hear about Ted Puppies. They want to hear about GamerGate. So if you got something about the Ted Puppies or the Worldcon thing in 2023.
Well, I know Neil Gaiman didn't like Sad Puppies. I know that, but then again, you know, all the people that went to China for their awards, they got excluded from the awards. The list of them is Neil Gaiman was one of them. RF Kwan and Exenren J. Zhao and Paul Wilmer were excluded from the ballot.
Well, why were they excluded?
Let's just say China. It involves China.
The Chinese Communist Party just, basically.
Yeah, concerns raised by the authors were targeted by political reasons, given to the Chinese Communist Party tight control of the cultural events in China. That's kind of what happened. It's the Hugo Awards 2023.
Cool.
You know, the no reward thing that they did to the people that were voting for the years back.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Ted Puppies controversy.
Yeah, with the no rewards thing.
Cool. Well, hey, you got any GamerGate questions for us or anything, JT? Or
yeah, you remember the Allison Rapp thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to bring that up because I kind of do feel bad that happened to her. I'll be honest with you about that situation. I only exposed the fact that the Maria Mint situation with her being exposed as Maria Mint.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of did the whole image comparisons of her tattoos linking to her thing, linking to the Maria Mint account. That's all I did.
Yeah. So no, I might be writing about that in the harassment Tachyon's take. Actually, I don't think you're responsible for like the harassment.
Yeah, I do feel bad that happened to her because I was just trying to point out that she was probably lying because what happened was I didn't realize she was an escort until those images popped up. I just did the image comparisons by pointing out her tattoos are kind of distinctly there. And I did the images of the red arrow thing pointing to that and that showing that this is her.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I'm not Allison Rapp. I can't tell you how she feels.
Yeah.
But it was such a long time ago, and your video, I don't think that really contributed anything.
Yeah, and we were joking about it, and we were joking about that whole thing too.
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to bring up like your specific role when I talk about the Allison Rapp thing, because I don't think that you did anything specifically wrong there. Though I did criticize you over the Brianna Wu video.
Yeah, the Brianna Wu video, I had to. I was just kind of upset with Brianna Wu because a lot of people, even I recalled the guys that tried to. You remember Jace Connors, right?
Yeah.
Jace Connors believed that she was also a he believed that she was illegitimate, like she was lying.
Well, Jace Connors was like a troll.
Yeah, he was a troll, but he kind of did believe that she was full of shit.
I mean, I assume he did, or he was he played.
Yeah, because I did go to the live stream and he talked about that whole issue with her, that he believed that she
No,
wasn't.
I was more referring to the Brianna Wu trans thing, but
the trans thing. Yeah,
but we can move off.
But
the topic.
but the reason why I did that was because I don't believe she was legitimate about her about the harassment situation. But when Jace Connors did that whole I'm going to challenge you to a rap battle on Skype, I thought it was hilarious.
Okay. Well, hey, you got Archon here. You got the founder of the Escapist. Have you guys talked before?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I asked him about a certain person a while back. It was the infamous creator who got outed, and of course I find out he successfully defeated the accusations against him.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
It's a certain RPG figure in the industry that was.
Why don't I ask? I might have asked you this already, Archon, when I interviewed you. But have you followed the dungeon drama thing? What was going on with that at all in the RPG world?
Mm-hmm.
He's muted.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I said no. I have not followed that.
Beyond.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, JT, you got anything else for us? Or you want to go over real quick?
No, that's fine, man. You take care of that whole situation. Good luck with the book, man.
Thank you. Have you backed already?
I have not yet backed that book yet, but I will back it soon.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks for coming on. And
thanks a lot.
I see you, Valerian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Take care.
Take care.
Bye bye. Cheers.
Good to see you, JT. All right, Valerian. You are speaker. What's up? You're muted.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello. So, first of all, Tachyon, as someone who was completely ignorant of GamerGate till about 4 years ago, I am your target audience for this book.
All right, what's up?
Not much. And secondly, Mr. Macris, I have to say thank you for Acts 2. You have utterly ruined my ability to be productive in other endeavors.
Glorious.
The audacity of you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, as someone who's largely ignorant of this event and very casually aware of it, to me, this just seems this was an instance of graft being exposed in a place that that graft wasn't expected to be.
I guess to some extent, I mean, like there were past issues in games journalism before, like the Jeff Gerstmann incident involving Kane Lynch, where he was actually fired from GameSpot for giving the game too low of a score, and they were a major advertiser. So there were past instances of corruption in games journalism. But I do think that, obviously as a consumer, you expect that when you're reading Kotaku or whatever, that they're not going to be lying to you. You expect that you're going to be reading at least true information. Unfortunately, that's not always true. That's not always the full story.
You kind of buy into the kayfabe that these journalists actually care about the interest to the same level and same reason why you do.
Yeah, but I guess to some of them, I don't have a problem with every games journalist. Some of them aren't too bad, but
that's fine. Yeah. So because there's been a fair amount of politics talk already, I'll ask a more forward-looking question, which is that now that this kind of reputation, I guess one could say, has been tarnished by this event, do you guys see any particular crystallization points for quote-unquote ethics in game journalism to happen? I mean, I believe we can all agree that the best thing to happen to the AAA gaming industry at this point is for it to cease very peaceably.
I don't know if I agree with that the AAA industry needs to die. But as for like ethics in game journalism, I think that the best thing that could happen has already happened, which is that I think we have a greater diversity of gaming journalism outlets now. Not necessarily in the form of traditional games journalism, in the sense of like there being a website or a magazine, but in terms of there being so many different content creators and bloggers and streamers now who make content about games, that people can follow the creators that they want, and they can find that niche creator who has the same tastes or similar tastes to themselves, and support their work.
So continuing, or a return to kind of the Wild West frontier of you have to go out and hunt for the person whose views you agree with or you feel is a fairly balanced take and a good presenter.
Unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if that's unfortunate or not.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah. Well, there probably is value, right, to some extent, in having like a centralized website that you can go to. One, they can cover more things, right? They have more people and they can cover more topics, and presumably they might have more resources than a podcast or a YouTuber might.
Right. So right now you don't see anyone kind of taking the throne from, say, Kotaku or some other such organization. Right now it's just all, to use Axe terminology, we're in the warlord phase once again.
I guess so. I mean, we are also in this weird era too, where we're seeing this sort of maybe a consolidation. Like we're seeing like IGN, I believe, just purchased a whole bunch of different gaming sites back in the day. Archon and I talked about that last time. Our IGN acquired Eurogamer, GI, VG247, Rock Paper Shotgun, and a couple other sites too. Nintendo Life, Push Square, Pure Xbox. So we're seeing this consolidation too, where a lot of these different gaming sites now are falling under these big networks. And I don't know what to think about that.
Would you compare it similarly to like more traditional like television media of the consolidation into basically megacorps?
Yeah, I don't know enough about like TV's consolidation, but
right.
Like I can't say if it's analogous, but yeah, I don't know too, because like anyone can make a gaming website tomorrow, right? And we're seeing like new websites pop up, like that Park Place, which I don't like recommend these sites necessarily, to be clear, but like you are seeing like bloggers come up too. Like this was a thing during GamerGate as well, but like these independent sites where you have like one person or like a team of like 2 or 3 friends. And
right, the overhead for that is very low to start something up, and then you just have to hit it lucky, basically, for Al Gore's rhythm to pick you up, or good word of mouth, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is how do you then turn it into a business? Because you only really have 2 ways you can monetize, either subscriptions or advertisement. And for a long time, the problem that anybody trying to create a media site that strays from the orthodox practices has faced is you can't get advertisers. And it's even harder today when the vast majority of the advertising budget is devoted to programmatic ads on Facebook and YouTube. And the YouTubers are able to get around this because they built cults of personality where their personal endorsement carries weight. And so they do a lot of product placement type ads outside of the programmatic system. But if you're trying to create a competitor to IGN today, how do you do that? Right? You try and put subscriptions, people aren't going to subscribe because they can get that content for free elsewhere. You try and get advertisers, and the mainstream advertisers won't advertise with you because they're making the very games that you're critiquing. And if you weren't critiquing them, well, they could already get that from IGN. And this is why, by the way, many people have asked me, hey, Alex, why don't you make a new Escapist? Why aren't you back in the space? You know how to do it. Why don't you do it?
You've been burned once.
Because there's no way to make money from it.
Right.
So what do you guys think? And this is not a topic I've explored too in depth, actually, in the book. But what do you guys think of these different models now of games journalism too, where you see sites like Aftermath or Second Wind? Again, I'm not like recommending them necessarily, but like where they have a worker-owned, where they're owned by the employees, and it's like worker-owned cooperatives.
Honestly, I don't have any strong opinions on this. My one of my catchphrases is "too many game, no many time." So. Well, honestly, I simply get by on word of mouth and the occasional Steam sale, or my buddy nudging me going, hey, take a look at this. As to the question of advertising and or revenue stream, I think really the best thing that people on quote unquote our side, the right, just you need to use every single tool available to you because you are on the back foot. I mean, you know, the question, I suppose we've seen. Sorry, let me rephrase. Would you say that with things like Kickstarter, Patreon, etc., that this is kind of a return to patronage, where rather than one wealthy patron or a small cabal of patrons, it's just that average Joe six-pack and just tens of thousands of them coming together to chip in to go, this, more of this, please, 2 handfuls.
Yeah, I think that we are seeing a lot of that. I don't know about in games journalism as much, but like we are seeing a lot of that in terms of video games, right? We're seeing Kickstarter, we're seeing Indiegogo, and I'm running a Kickstarter right now, right? I'm promoting it with this space. So
if life hadn't surprised me, I would have absolutely kickstarted you. However, life happened again.
That's understandable. If you get the money, you can. If not, just share it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I mean, I do see a lot of value in crowdfunding. This is why I'm doing it. I don't know if that's like a sustainable model for journalism, though. One thing and I'm sure Archon can speak to this too. One thing is that people want something in return. Like they don't want to just donate money, generally speaking.
Right.
I mean, there are people who do, right? There are charities that are successful. There are artists, but most people they want something in exchange. They want a product in return. And unfortunately, the problem is, like Archon said, games journalism is there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of it out there, and you don't get a lot of money for ad revenue. And most of the time, the sites are covering a lot of the same stories. So if you're behind a paywall, or like a donation paywall in this case, basically the same thing as like a paywall, then your people are going to just go to IGN, or they'll go to Kotaku, or they'll go to somewhere else to get the
path of least resistance.
Yeah, where they don't have to pay money, unless you distinguish yourself in some way where you have like really high quality writers or something.
What's your gimmick?
Hard. That's hard to do.
And it's especially hard to do it as a publisher when your high quality writers at every given point are thinking to themselves, you know, I could probably go leave and go start my own YouTube channel. I don't need this other corporate brand. I could actually make more money just as my own personal brand, which, for instance, just happened to Daily Wire when 2 of its biggest stars just up and left. They were like, goodbye. What? Because why stay with Daily Wire when you can go have your own YouTube channel and capture all of the money? So this is the problem that all medium-sized media publishers are facing, which is they're not big enough to be able to maintain AAA talent, and they're not small enough and personal enough to be able to get subscriber dollars and Patreon dollars and things like that. It's a very bad place to be business-wise right now.
They're too small to endure and too large to pivot correctly.
Yeah, for sure. So,
all right. Well, that's all about I had to discuss with you, gentlemen. Life continues again. Thank you both for this opportunity to talk to both of you, and good luck in all of your future endeavors. God bless.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Valarn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see Richard here. We're going to be bringing you up. Richard, you're live.
What we're seeing in games journalism is literally the decline of traditional print media in just another form. They're going through kind of the same pains, right? They have a loss of credibility, a loss of ethical standards, whether you want to talk about the close relationship between whoever's writing the article and their sponsorship, quote unquote, and masquerading this as objective reviews, political agendas over genuine criticism. We've also seen a lot of the same challenges, right, that rise up when they kind of blur the lines between what's news and opinion. We see corporate influence on editorial opinions from some staff higher up. I go back and I look and say, you know, normal news media could not handle all the alternate sources of information that came out. They couldn't compete because they were playing catch up to streamers, blogs, all these other digital platforms. Game journalism's in the same predicament. Whereas I can sit down, find my favorite streamer, and see the content live without the filter of someone editing what they think is happening. I can watch him and determine right away, is he giving me valid criticism? Do I agree with his opinion? Is it substantiated by what he's showing? Whereas game journalism, you don't know what's motivating them. You don't know what's behind their article. And I think whoever's going to survive into the future, what gamers look for is transparency. They want direct communication. We want authentic critique. We want community engagement. We want to actually be able to talk like this with our game developers and feel that we're being listened to, and a diverse perspective. And when I say diverse perspective, I don't want race, color, creed. What I want is I want the Call of Cthulhu guy who was there when Theater of the Mind first became a term, talking to old school D&D players like myself, talking to the White Wolf players. That's the type of diversity we want, is voices of experience, not some check in a box. And I think they're going to go the same path. They'll be present, but with the loss of revenue dollars, you're going to see more digital platforms, more smaller independent publishers that we can seek out. That's where we're going. No one buys the paper today for a reason.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so I do think that you're right in the assessment that this has happened and this is going to continue to happen. I'm not sure it's a double-edged sword. It's the future we're going to be living in. We're going to have to face up to it. There are a lot of problems with the mainstream media. They got GamerGate wrong, that's for sure. That's like an incident that caused people to lose trust in the media, one of several. But I do think that what's replacing the mainstream media isn't necessarily good. Like I wouldn't trust Tucker Carlson or even like Joe Rogan to get my news from necessarily, right? Like Joe Rogan's not even like a news person, but he's where a lot of people get their information from. But I don't think that's like a good trade off either. I think that we need to have institutions that are trustworthy, and I think we need to work towards building those.
I would say that in the past, the press was always considered the fourth estate, but what held them in check, it was the people, because as a society, we were very good at, we were more educated, we were more well read, we thought in more than bullets. If you don't get your message across in 3 lines of text now, in so many characters, you will not be read. If you cannot grab someone's immediate and they don't care about the references, you go more than a paragraph to make a good, solid argument, you're shut down and overshouted. And right now with press, what I like, what we're seeing is like what's her name? Hetheridge from, I think she used to be on CBS, the black-haired reporter. I can listen to just her without backing CBS in the new platform environment, because you couldn't pay me to listen to, for example, CBS. The same thing with journalism, whereas I understand there should be trusted institutions, but until those institutions find a way to substantiate their reader base, I don't think it's like networking, right? You used to go to the one big PC for everything at a company. You had the big mainframe with punch cards or mag tape transports. But eventually you ended up going to mesh networking. And I feel like today our institutions are becoming more like mesh networks, where I build my network on reliable sources that provide factual data. And I can get my news, because that's basically what I do. I get my news real time from trusted sources. It was no different than back when we were growing up and you had ABC, CBS, and NBC. You just picked your trusted sources back then.
But are people good at determining what sources are trustworthy? I think they aren't.
They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. But that's why I always try to say the first line of the argument is kind of like what was his name? Sold 3 terms to end any argument, and encourage people to think down those lines. That's all you can do. Because if you don't debate with someone who starts from a factual source, so you can at least debate the source, you might as well just walk away from the discussion.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have much.
Yep.
What do you
Yep.
got? What do you got for us? Any questions or anything else you want to talk about?
No, when is the release of the book is the biggest question. When are we expecting to go to publish print, and where is it going to be available?
All right, so right now it's available on Kickstarter. I'll be sending out, backers will get their copies first, so I'll be mailing the physical copies and sending the digital copies after the Kickstarter ends. If it's successful, which I hope it will be. We've got $2,400 right now. So thank you. We just got another backer like in the past minute and a half. So thank you to whoever that was, if you're listening. But it will be released to the public. I'm not sure exactly. I'm aiming for February, but I would say Q1 2024 or 2025. The first volume will be done. It's already finished. The first volume is. I just need to actually release it on Amazon, and everything's set up for that. So all I have to do is basically press a button. But I want to make sure that I send out the physical copies to backers first, and the digital copies to backers too. So I want to make sure backers get their rewards first, and then after I fulfill that, then I'm going to publish it. So very early 2025 for Volume 1. Volume 2, I don't have an exact date set just yet because it's not done, but it's like 80% there. So I would say definitely 2025 for Volumes 2 and 3, and then we'll see from there.
Roger, guys, I appreciate it. And Alexander, thank you for X2. I've gotten we've got a gaming group that's been together for 40 years now, spread across 4 time zones, and they are liquored up and ready to start conquering.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. We got a tweet here from Valarn, who was just on. He says, institutions obtain credibility by repeated positive results and a lack of corruption of power. However, as they gain credibility, corruption begins to be attracted to them, he says.
Truth.
All right, we got any other callers here? We got a bunch of people watching. If you want to be a caller, be sure to select join the call or request to speak.
I think you missed your calling, Tachyon, and you should have been like a late night radio host.
I don't know. Am I doing good at this?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like at any moment we're going to start talking about aliens.
We're on coast to coast, baby.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, do you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yes, very good. You?
Yeah, absolutely. I like turkey. Turkey's a good turkey on sandwiches is okay, but turkey when it's roasted like that or deep fried, like that's good turkey.
I don't know why people hate on turkey. I love turkey. Yeah.
People do hate on turkey. I don't know.
They do. They hate on it. Yeah, I think they're anti-American.
Must be it.
That's the only explanation.
I agree. All right. Do we have no other callers? Is there anything else you want to talk about, Archon?
No, I mean, we hit most of my major talking points. I continue to view, we can say it was a defeat, but in many ways, GamerGate was the first time anyone suffered anything other than an absolute defeat in the culture war, and I think that's why 10 years later, it still gets trotted out as this bugaboo, right? Like you see, CNN will still be like, did Trump get elected because of GamerGate? And they're just,
Did they actually say that recently?
Yeah, they did. I don't know if it was CNN, but someone did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. People have very bad thought processes, right? I'm gonna start bringing in all the people requesting just to her. Oh, it's just Richard. Well, you're in, Richard.
No, that was a misclick. I thought my mic was live. I was trying to mute it.
Okay. All right. Did you see that? Barry Weiss in the Free Press?
No, what about?
So Barry Weiss, she works for the New York Times, but then she started her own company, the Free Press. She had Brianna Wu on recently, and she told Barry doesn't seem to know what GamerGate is at all. But she said, "Oh, Trump is the GamerGate candidate." She said, and then Brianna agreed with her. And then and then she said something else too that was wrong about GamerGate. So Chris Ferguson and I had criticized the Free Press for this. I even wrote a letter to them wrote a letter to the editor to have them publish it, but they didn't do it.
Interesting.
Yes, unfortunate. But I do. How do we? Well, first off, I guess, how do you get the media's attention? Because I need to do that, I guess, for this project, Archon. Do you have any ideas?
I mean, the best way you can do to get the media's attention is to do something awful that offends progressive sensibilities. Then they'll be very interested in talking about you.
Well, no, I've already done that because I was part of GamerGate. So, like, I've already crossed that Rubicon. So, like, what else can I do?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah. Because right now, I think the games press, many of them are basically deliberately avoiding this project because they don't want to talk about it on purpose. I've reached out to a bunch of gaming sites.
Oh yeah, for sure. Why would they want to talk about it, right?
I don't think it's they perceive it to be not in their interest.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to talk about, or we can go, or do you want to keep going, or it's up to you? I'm cool.
I have a hard break at 9, so we got 9 minutes left. If there's anything anybody in the audience wants to chat about, or anybody wants to speak, otherwise we can call it early. We had some good questions, some good topics.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how passionate people still are 10 years on. Like
It is. It gives me some hope. And actually, I feel like doing the Twitter space was really a good idea. First of all, I guess I got 2 backers immediately from this, which was like a good success. But 2, I think it was a really good conversation, and we also we got a lot of viewers. Like, I wasn't sure what this would be like since this is my first one ever. So
yeah, it's an interesting thing, the Twitter Spaces. So I do a Discord live chat every month, and I do a weekly YouTube live stream. And the Twitter Spaces have I think what makes them unique is that the audience can just kind of roll in and interact with you. Whereas on like a live stream on YouTube, you get like text, but it's not as easy to get people's voice. So it really does feel a lot more like a radio talk show, like very coast to coast, which is kind of fun.
it does. It does. I do like that. That's something that I missed from the GamerGate days. Is we did live streams. It was sort of people would share the link like crazy, and so you'd have tons of people, dozens of people over the course of the day. It was a limited 10 at one time, but it was dozens of people over the course of like a 5 or 6 hour stream would jump on, and it was like a wild thing, just like this. So it's a good feel to it. Good niche. That's a little bit different from other streaming.
Yeah, agreed.
So you're working on comics?
I am. I have a graphic novel series called Star Spangled Squadron. It is about a world in which it's our world exactly as it is, except that out of nowhere, superhero powers have begun to manifest. And what happens is that the U.S. government realizes that people will be absolutely terrified if they present them as super soldiers and CIA agents and things like that. So they deliberately present their new sort of humans of mass destruction as comic book heroes. And, kind of like they discover, if you say this is a deadly assassin who can kill you with his mind, people are like, oh, that's kind of scary. I wonder if the government should have that power. Whereas if they put him in a funny costume and they call him Dr. X-Ray, then they're like, oh, that's awesome. I love Dr. X-Ray. I follow him on Instagram. And so it's this kind of like dark take on how the government would act, but the heroes themselves are actually genuinely patriotic, heroic people who kind of have bought into it because they all grew up on comic books. So like the main character, is actually reading Action Comics to understand better how he should act, now that he has these powers and stuff. So it's a fun series, and it's the basis of my role-playing game, Ascendant.
Okay, and it's so this is sort of like a satirical take almost, or not a satirical, but what's the word? Like a subversion of the comic book tropes or norms.
It's not really intended as a subversion per se. It's intended as a realistic take. Like, okay, see, let me rewind for a moment. The popular zombie TV show and comic book, The Walking Dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
The creator of The Walking Dead has said that it's set in our universe with one exception. George Romero's zombie movie was never made, and so as a result, zombies never entered pop culture. And so when The Walking Dead emerge, people don't know about zombies, and they don't react to it the way they would if zombies had existed in their pop culture. And so that's what enables it to be a surprise, and people are like, oh my God, what's going on? And most comic books do the same thing. Like they have, when comic book heroes arrive, people are like, oh, okay, this is this new thing. I wanted to do the opposite. And so it's a world where Marvel and DC actually exist. And so when people begin to develop superheroes, they interpret them in light of our existing pop culture and what happened. So it's not intended to be so much as a subversion as it's just intended to take literally what would happen if superheroes emerged in a world characterized by Marvel movies, DC movies, social media, and our weird dysfunctional government. And that's the outcome.
Okay. What do you think of the election?
Yeah. Which election?
The U.S. election, U.S. presidential.
I mean, well, I wear my hat on my head pretty proudly in terms of being on the right. So I was pleased with the outcome. Now I'm just waiting to be disappointed, because that's what always happens when you're a right winger in America. But we'll see. We'll see.
What do you think of the cabinet picks?
What do I think of the cabinet picks? I like some, I dislike others. I'm a little worried that they're going to be more pro-war than I wanted.
I want them to be pro-war. I want them to be pro-America, baby.
Pro-war, really?
Well, I don't want them to be pro-war. I want them to be have a nuanced foreign policy that recognizes the various challenges that our country faces.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we might have different ideas what that means.
My main concern is I don't think we're in any position to fight a war because we're so deindustrialized. And so I am pro-military, but I think we need to reconstruct our industrial base before we start swinging our dick around.
Well, I don't think we have much of a choice. I think America is fucking great. I think our military is pretty strong still.
It is, but it wouldn't stay strong in any sort of high-intensity conflict because of the rate of attrition.
I don't want us to be in a high-intensity conflict, but I do think we should support Ukraine. I think that we're more likely to be in a high-intensity conflict if we allow Russia to get everything they want in Ukraine.
Well, that's above my pay grade as a mere GamerGate commentator. So
we've also only got 2 minutes left. So yeah. Cool. Well, hey, thanks for doing this, Archon. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Thanks for hosting it, and I hope everyone supports your Kickstarter and you get a great payout that makes all the work you've done worth it, because it's definitely doing a service to the hobby, and everyone who was there. Everyone I know who's there and participated in the events really wants to see the story told properly.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we'll see how many people there are like that. But yeah, if you're one of those people, if you want to see the story told properly, please go to gamergatebook.com or click on my profile, and it's the pinned tweet. The People of GamerGate on Kickstarter. So thank you so much, Archon. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for all of our guests who've come on and chatted with us. Please back the Kickstarter today. This work is a labor of love, demonstrating the true story of what happened to the best of my ability. Tried to leave no stone unturned, as it were. So,
amen.
All right. Well, hey, have a good night. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.